So introducing Alia, I'm pleased to be joined here by you.
Heyo.
And yeah, like Alia is an amazing photographer. She's very talented in what she does, and if you haven't checked out her work, please do. It's all on social media. She will give her handles at the end of the talk. So, and to talk about some of her work, well, she actually focuses on fashion and portraiture, which is so fashion and portraiture, and she's also an art director, which is based between India and the UK. So her work has been published across digital platforms, including VICE and Vogue. And later on, she will just discuss some of her work with us. So I'm just going to hand over to you, Alia. Thank you.
Hello. Thanks so much for coming. So yeah, my name's Alia. And I guess Paolo covered most of it, but basically I specialize in fashion, portraiture, and I do a bit of fine art and documentary work as well. And just to give you... There we go. This is kind of, I guess, a mood board of the type of the stuff that inspires me. So I am half Indian and half Italian, and I grew up in India. And and I moved to the UK about 7 years ago. So I've been kind of on my photography journey for about 6-7 years now. And yeah, to kind of preface my work, I guess, this is just... I'm really inspired by the place I grew up in. I grew up in Bangalore, India. I don't know if you guys are familiar. It's basically in South India. And it's kind of, these are just photos that I took on my phone over the last few years of just things that have inspired my work and inspire me. I've been really inspired by like mythology, architecture, just everyday life and fashion. And yeah, so that's kind of... I also have an Instagram where I just like put my random stuff. So yeah. And this is kind of just an overview of my actual fashion and portraiture work. I like to explore themes that kind of tell LGBTQ plus narratives as well as South Asian stories. And I explore kind of my own identity and background as well. And yeah, to kind of tell you a bit about how I got into photography. I ended up applying and doing a film degree, so that's kind of where the art direction comes from. I specialized in production design, so it's basically set building, and then dabbled in cinematography as well. But very early on into my course, I realized that I did not want to work in film. The only reason that I kind of went into a course like that was because I grew up in a very rigorous environment that didn't really encourage pursuing a degree in the arts or any kind of career in the arts. So I thought, well, you know, Bollywood in India is such a huge industry. I might as well go into film. It's close enough. And yeah, found out very quickly that it wasn't for me. But it kind of really helped me explore, I guess, the still part of it and the photography side, because I work very heavily in studios and kind of building different environments, and I love color, as you can tell. And yeah, so while I was doing my film degree, I started freelancing and just putting my work out on social media, and going to networking events and meeting whoever I could and kind of trying to build up connections in the industry, and I'm still kind of doing that, but yeah, that's kind of, I guess, how I got my work out there a little bit, still trying, but yeah, and yeah, right now I am, I guess, doing freelance as well as assisting a bit of everything, so building up my technical skills as well as just doing my own personal projects. And today I kind of wanted to share a few of the projects that have been really special to me over the last few years. So I guess I'll start off with self-portraits. I like to, I guess, put myself in front of the camera because it's been a nice way for me to understand what I'm asking of people I'm shooting, and when I explore topics that are kind of vulnerable or that require you to tell a story, it was my way of just understanding what I'm asking of people when I'm shooting them. Also, it's been like a special way for me to see my growth over the years. And so the picture on the left is an image I did for Shadow magazine. I don't know if you're familiar with them. And that was an exhibition, and the one on the right was a commission for Adobe. And yeah, that was kind of to talk about my experience over the pandemic. So over the pandemic, I moved back to India for 1.5 years, and I didn't touch a camera for the whole time. And then for like 6 to 8 months at the end of it, I got into a really big project that I'll share with you at the end of the presentation. So one of the series that is really special to me is a series I did called Mothers and Daughters, and that was, I grew up in a matriarchal household. So I was raised by my grandma and my mum, who was a single parent in India, and I made this project while I was in London, and it was during a time, this was I think 2019, and it was during a time where I was like really missing them, and I was interested in other intergenerational matriarchal households, and especially in the South Asian diaspora. So I started off the project with kind of a very heavily studio-based series, very focused on color. And I was really inspired by Mughal miniature paintings. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. I should have probably had a reference, but basically they're really beautiful paintings that feature frames and stories within stories through illustrations. And I really wanted to incorporate the use of frames somehow in my own work. And so I collaborated with a tattoo artist and illustrator called Helena Mystery to create a series of just vignettes of mothers and daughters. And this was just the initial stages of the project, which then turned into something a little bit more experimental. So I worked with cyanotypes and black and white photography, because I also work heavily with analog practices and with darkroom printing and stuff like that. And the series kind of switched from something more studio-based and I guess directed by me to me traveling to people's homes and shooting them in their homes and having a more collaborative environment and letting the people I was shooting, and most of them are my friends, have some kind of agency to how they wanted to be presented as well. And these are all hand printed like cyanotypes on watercolor paper. Yeah, there's a whole series, but I'm just showing 4 today. And yeah, and another series I did was Brown and Queer for Henna and Huck That. It was basically very early on in, early on in my, I guess, career. This was like 5-6 years ago, and it was the first time I talked about queer themes and just LGBTQ plus identities, and kind of explored what that meant to me and my place in that as well. It was kind of like a bit of my coming out in the series, because then this photo ended up going viral, and which is a bit scary. And then it got featured in, in VICE, and then displayed at the Saatchi Gallery as well. So that was kind of cool. But that photo, the first one over there, is one of my favorites in my portfolio ever. So I don't know if I can top it, but and then that series kind of ended up, Levi's ended up finding that series and then commissioning me to do a project for Queer Britain. I don't know if you know Queer Britain. It's basically the UK's first LGBTQ plus museum. They opened a couple of months ago, and I have some work in there at the moment. And they also recently changed their display, and I still have a little bit of work in there. So you guys should check it out. It's in King's Cross. And yeah, so Levi's commissioned me to do a series about chosen families. So I focused on 5 different Desi individuals, LGBTQ plus Desi individuals with their chosen families. And it was a series of 15 photos, and it was also my first time, I think this was in 2019 or 18. It was also my first time ever exhibiting my work in real life. I hadn't done that before, so that was pretty sick. So we had a 2-week exhibition in Covent Garden, and yeah, and then, yeah. So basically, the whole point of my work and kind of what I want to share is DIY and why it's great. So I guess I'm gonna talk a little bit about the beauty of DIY and creating pictures with what you have, because I'm mostly self-taught, and everything I learned was from the internet. So and also with very low budgets and not many or any links into the industry. So everything I did was either in my living room or other people's kitchens and homes, and with like cheap lights, finding cameras from eBay or charity shops, learning and understanding lighting, and just trying to build my technical skills through whatever I had access to. And that's been what I've been doing for the last 5-6 years. So yeah, this was a shoot I did, a beauty shoot for Talia, who's in the middle over there. And this was kind of what came out of it. So this was all shot in the kitchen with a 1 light setup. And yeah, and then, oh my God. Also, tell me if I'm going too quick, because, okay, cool. And another example of just like how I started building networks in the industry was through just reaching out to people whose work I really liked. So Polyester magazine was one of them. It was this is kind of, I guess, the bubbles or the trajectory of how you manifest, you know. So I loved their magazine when I was in India in high school, and then I would constantly contact them whenever they had open submissions, and sometimes, most of the time, they wouldn't respond, and it was probably because my work was shit at the time as well. But like, also, don't worry if people don't respond, because, you know, it might just not be the right time for you. And then, yeah, one time I saw like on their Instagram that they were casting something. And I'd never modeled before. So I was like, yeah, sick, I'm going to try. And I ended up getting cast for it. And then that kind of started our, I guess, working relationship. And they invited me to speak on a podcast, on a panel. And that was also my first in real life speaking experience. And I ended up contributing to their magazine as well after that. And this was a series I did for them. Again, full DIY setup. Yeah, super simple, low budget type of stuff. And yeah, and here are some of the other projects that I've worked on, like more commercial projects using low budget DIY styles. So I worked with Warner Brothers for a series that they were doing for Scooby-Doo. The Levi's one was one of them. And then I collaborated with Instagram as well during the pandemic on just how to take cute photos at home. Yeah, mad cheesy, but yeah. Basically, I tell myself this every day. So then, yeah. And that kind of leads me to my most recent project, Bhava Chitra. So I said during the pandemic, for almost a year, I didn't really touch a camera. I was kind of really burnt out. And I needed a break. So I ended up actually discovering my grandma's photo albums and just, quite early on. And I'd always been really interested in like archiving and just antiques and I guess, yeah, archiving personal histories. So I started doing that for a few months, and then found this amazing archive in, it's called an archive in Tamil Nadu, which is a state near where I grew up. And South India is quite famous for studio portraiture and studio photography, but we don't have a lot of people curating and maintaining it, because in India we haven't attached a lot of importance, especially to personal histories. And that was something I was really interested in exploring more. And it was nice because during the pandemic, when I started getting back into photography, I ended up kind of turning the lens to those closest to me. So the first people that I ended up shooting were my family. So I did a series with my grandma, and just talked to her a lot about just her experiences with photography and going to the studios and what that was like. And that felt really special because it was 2 years after my Mothers and Daughters series. So it kind of felt like a full circle moment in a way. And then for my series Bhavachitra, I ended up speaking to other elderly Indian people about their experiences, went through their archives, and kind of talked to them about just, how they preserved and maintained it and what their own personal histories meant to them. And basically to give you a little bit of a background about I'm not going to give you the history of photography in India, but during colonial rule, the Indian public was very much presented through an ethnographic lens, so they didn't have a lot of agency or control over how they wanted to be presented. And the photo studio, or the introduction of the photo studio, was something that gave the Indian public and Indian photographers a sense of freedom. It was almost like a symbol of freedom to be able to tell stories and present themselves how they wanted to be presented instead of being categorized through an ethnographic lens, basically. And so exploring the photo studio was something I wanted to do, especially with the digital age. We don't really attach importance to physical prints, or just, I guess, archiving, personal histories. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. And that brings me to Bhavachitra, which is just a book I made over here. Feel free to look at it after the talk. But I'll share some of the photos, and this is not published yet. I'm trying to find a publisher. I haven't really done a good job of it, of searching for one. But essentially what it is I'm going to read this out. Sorry if that's really annoying. But Bhavachitra from Kannada, which is the state I'm from, the language of the state I'm from, is translated into presentation of self or portraiture. Bhava meaning inner expression, sometimes used to describe art forms without the use of words. For example, dance. And chitra meaning picture, either in relation to art, painting, or photography. This series is an exploration and interpretation of South Indian studio photography through the perspective of documenting the presentation of the self. And kinship as an extension of this. The entire project was created in my hometown, Bangalore, Karnataka, through the use of a traveling studio, and features sitters from all over the city who were keen to have their own picture captured in studio form. So this was kind of a series that I did over 6-7 months around my hometown. So I'd take a traveling studio, set up in different places, and either invite people or ask everyone I knew to bring people and come sit for me. And and sometimes we'd have passerbys. I shot in a church, in a temple, near my house, in the city, and then in more rural areas as well. And what was really cool was that everyone who participated ended up getting either a print or the photo in return, depending on how they wanted it to be delivered to them. So some people wanted it on Instagram, some people wanted it through WhatsApp, others just wanted a print. And that was super cool because there was definitely like generational differences there as well. depending on how people wanted the photos back to them. And yeah, so this is Bhavachitra. And yeah, that's it. That's the end. Thank you so much. Also, yeah, feel free to have a look at the whole series over here if you feel. I'm just putting it here. Thank you.
Thank you, Alia. That was amazing. Amazing talk. So before we close, does anyone have any questions for Alia?
Should I pass the mic?
Yeah.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Fran, and my question for you is what are your goals or projects that you have coming up in the future that you're excited about?
Right now, I'm just well, I'm living life now. I don't have anything specific. It's more, I guess, working with the body of work that I made, because going through 6 months of an intensive shooting process was kind of a lot, because I ended up shooting about 150 families, and the book has over 100 photos. So recovering from that a little bit, and then also trying to think of just more fashion work and entering that side. I also assist, and I work a lot in the darkroom. So I guess honing those skills a little bit. Yeah. Nothing specific, but yeah.
Thank you.
Did you have a question? Yeah.
Can you hear me
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you ever see yourself kind of combining your Italian heritage with your artwork? Or is that something you haven't?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe. I grew up, I lived in Italy for 5 years, and then I moved to India when I was 5. So everything I know about life was from growing up in India. So maybe I would. I don't visit that often, but potentially. Never say never. So.
I was going to ask, what environment do you feel like you get your best inspiration from, and do you work well under pressure, and is that something that motivates you?
Not really. I don't like working under pressure, but also it's about perspective. I think, especially post-pandemic, I used to get anxious and I guess nervous about everything. And because I took a break from photography, it really changed my perspective on just approaching it. I found that when I took my time and did a lot of research and really understood what I was trying to say and had a lot of depth behind the projects I wanted to do, and especially my personal projects, it made me far more excited about it. So I prefer the long term, working on something for a few months. But I'm not opposed to, say, one day turnaround and then seeing what happens, because it's always nice to go onto set, collaborate with people, and still be a bit free about it. It really depends on the situation. But definitely for big personal projects, I like taking my time and not rushing things, which is why I haven't rushed finding a publisher, or just no one's really seen this work. So I just share it when it feels special. So yeah, that's kind of my approach to it.
I was going to ask, as a freelancer, how do you manage doing things that you love and then also making money? Because I know you still have to live and pay for rent and stuff. So how's that balance?
It's so hard. It's why I was burnt out March 2020, and I was freelancing for a couple of years, and I couldn't do it. And I learned a lot. You learn a lot through freelancing, but then each month is about making rent, and then you don't end up doing any kind of personal work. That's what I was finding I was doing. So right now, that's why I don't have that much, I don't have that much planned, because I'm mostly working on personal things and doing things slowly, because I feel I think especially in this environment and in fashion, we're pushed to always think of new ideas and churn out things very quickly. And that puts a lot of pressure on you, especially if you are creative, I I do part-time work and I assist. And it's hard to be in those environments. It's taken me 5 years to even get there. But that also gives me time to, on the weekends or after work or whenever I have free time during the week, to really focus on my own projects and think about things that I really want to do. And I found currently that balance works for me, but I also think that it changes over time, and it depends where you're at in your head. Yeah.
I also wanted to ask, how was like the transition from like, I don't know what you did before, from working and becoming a freelancer?
So I became a freelancer while I was at uni. First year of uni, I was like, I don't want to do film, and I don't want to be in this industry, so I really need to work on my portfolio and make as many connections as I can. And so out of uni, straight out of uni, I did Levi's, which was a crazy project to get. So I was on a high. And then after that, everything like went quiet for months, which is normal in freelance work. But that was definitely part of the burnout, because you don't understand what you're doing wrong, but sometimes it's just the time. And it might just not be a good time for you, and that's super normal. So that was tough. But yeah, I ended up doing part-time work again, assisting. And I found that balance works best for me. Until you find consistent freelance work, it's important to have a balance. Make sure you have lots of streams of income before kind of throwing yourself into one thing, which was a mistake I did. Don't do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I have few questions. One is like, I'm also interested to know why you didn't feel like you wanted to do film.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, should I ask the other questions or should I wait?
Well, I'll
Just
I'll
ask.
answer this one. And then,
ask.
Okay, yeah, sure, you
Or-
can. I won't remember. I'll probably ask you again.
Okay, maybe you can just answer this.
Oh yeah, okay. I like how intimate photography is. I like that there's smaller teams and projects. Usually, unless they're long-term projects that you work on for several months, you usually work on them alone or in small teams. I found film really swallowed me, and because they're massive departments, you spend a lot of time on one thing, and that way of working didn't work for me. I didn't enjoy it, so that was mainly why. And I also found just stills and photography spoke to me a lot more. I loved watching films. I didn't love making them, and I didn't know that when I did my degree, and I kind of confused the two. I think it was about just differentiating what I like to do as hobbies, whereas what I would want to do as a career. And I think that's a constant question that we all ask ourselves, unless you're really lucky and you know what you want to do from the get-go. But yeah, that's why.
And you shared like some work from mother and daughter portrait, and you said that you also incorporated like how they wanted themselves to be presented.
Yeah.
If you want to like share something more about it, I don't know if this
So
like how did you incorporate it, or I'm just curious to know.
So it was because I shot in their homes, especially the second half of the project. I kind of left the styling up to them. So some of them were extremely traditional, whereas others were, a bit more relaxed. So things like posing, styling, all of that, I kind of left to them. I would give them some kind of guidance with posing, especially if they were awkward in front of the camera or they didn't know what to do. I would either like reenact or show them what I would do with my mom or my family, and that kind of made it a little more comfortable. Also, when I arrived, we wouldn't shoot immediately. Like, we would spend an hour, a couple of hours talking, and I'd get to know them. And like most of the time they fed me after. Like, I got sent home with a bunch of teplas, like, like it was a whole, I'd spend quite a lot of time before we'd actually shoot. So by the time we'd shoot, we were quite comfortable with each other, and they knew how you know, when somebody has spent enough time with you, they feel comfortable. They're like, can we do this? Can we do that? And I kind of left it up to them. Yeah.
In all your work, there's like some way or the other, there's a human presence in them. Do you also want to work like in photography where there is space, but there's like human presence, but human isn't present, like physically there, if you are interested in space?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I haven't explored it yet. Maybe at some point. I don't restrict myself at all. But right now I'm interested in people, and I love making work with people. I think that those are special stories to share. So I'm gonna stay there for a while, I think. Yeah.
I have one more question, but maybe you should ask like other people now. You also said that you are inspired by everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any like specific thing that you're more inclined towards? Or
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's what I listed before, like just architecture, fashion, like everyday fashion, literally, because in India it's very different. Like, for example, my work, everyone here says my work is super colorful, but to me it's on instinct. It's what I grew up around. It's not something I think about very deeply because it's normal. And yeah, flowers, I love like flower markets, just everyday interactions. I don't know if that makes sense. I think that it's very hard to explain when you're out of context, but I think I tried.
cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I have a question actually. The style of printing, what you did with the, I can't remember the name.
Cyanotypes.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. How did you go about doing those stuff?
So I just really like alternative photographic practices, and I'm a huge nerd. And so I am on all the Facebook groups and ask the questions to like, yeah, and like YouTube everything and watch all of these tutorials. And it's really easy to do. But I've loved like film ever since I was a kid. I started kind of shooting and making work when I was 8 or 9, because my grandma gave me like a tiny point and shoot. It was kind of the only camera we'd have accessible to us because they'd sell them at the supermarkets. So I really love just anything analog related. So I really like chemicals are cool, you know. That's the vibe.
It's amazing. Yeah, no, I like it. Anyone else? Final questions? No? Perfect. I'm just going to close the talk now. Okay.
Thank you.
So massive round of applause, please. Just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's attended the talk, also online. Hello, everyone. Yeah, it's been amazing. Thank you to Alia, thank you for TPF and the Bureau for hosting this amazing talk here. If you ever are interested in attending to future talks, please do follow us on social media. We do pop a lot of posts there, so yeah, or just sign up to the Eventbrite as well. And if anyone is interested in supporting TPF and their mission, please do talk to one of us. We do have lanyards, so anyone who has a lanyard, please talk to us and get more information about like volunteering or whether it's donating or just finding a bit more information. Yeah. And I hope to actually see everyone very soon, you know, for our next talk, which is, don't know what date it is, but yeah, just check the talk. Yeah, next month. There you go. But thank you. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Alia, thank you.
Thank you.